Welcome to my process. My name is Teri Jones, and this is a piece of watercolor paper that I am using some Payne's Gray ink on, and underneath of the ink it's been scribbled with some watercolor crayons. And here I'm just spreading some of the color around with a damp brush, and I'm spritzing with water. I'm going to just kind of play around. I decided it was really wet and I liked the pattern, so I took a print off of it, and then I put some brush show on it. I used the terracotta and the ultramarine, and I start spritzing it some more to see if I can get the brush show to kind of begin to move a little bit. Moves the watercolor crayons, and it moves the brush show, and it actually moves a bit of the ink. I take a skewer here and just kind of go through it and scrape through it. And then I started in with my Stabilo crayons. This is a teal crayon. This is a little bit of a blue crayon. So the next layer, I've dried it. Now I'm going to start putting the next layer in. And the next layer I try to use more opaque. This is a semi-opaque teal that I'm putting on, and what you'll see is I'm going to add some more white into it to try to get it a little more opaque. I'm using this stencil, and I'll put it in 2 or 3 different places. I'll try to rub it off, but not that much came off, so then I will replace it, and I'm going to use the stencil again in a slightly different area. The slightly different color, I have lightened it a little bit, and I played with it there, and then you'll see me put another stencil in. Now this one I've decided I want to have a greener color, so I've added some green to my palette, and then I've scraped it off on the top edge, and then I'll use this lime greenish color. As I said, this layer is usually a semi-opaque. I don't want to be totally opaque. I want to see some of the layer underneath, but I don't want it to be totally transparent. And I like to lay patterns over patterns. So I will use this stencil in a couple places, probably 3 places, laying in some pattern. And so what you'll see is I have lightened the color as I go too. So I've went from a lime green to a lighter green. And now I'll grab another stencil. These are letters, but I like to use the letters backwards. So again, I've lightened my color a little bit. I'm using a stamper, a foam stamper, to stamp the stencil work in. And I've put the letters down, and now I'm just kind of seeing what's next. I liked the green in the corner, so I just kind of worked a little bit with adding a little green in that corner. This is a very intuitive process. I have no idea really what I'm going to do. I'm coming in now with some ultramarine, and you saw me scraping some of that ultramarine off onto from the palette knife on. And now I am trying to see if a skewer will move some of the paint, and move some of it, not all of it. I like lines, I like skewers, I like a lot of chaos. Again, I'm putting on another color. This time I've done this, used the ultramarine and white. So I am kind of, and as I said, I place colors on top of colors. So I try to use the back of the stencil, but it doesn't always work. So again, just feeling my way through. This is not rocket science. I just keep on kind of working, trying to figure out what I need next. I want a layer with a lot of different textures in it. I want a little bit of the bottom layer peeking through, but I want some textures, some lights and darks. So now I'm kind of trying to figure out what's next. Another stencil, and I am mixing a lighter color. I decided it was a bit dark in that center there, so laying more color down, laying it in more places. I probably just should have some nice music, deep, 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 deep music going on here or something. And here's that same stencil. And the same stencil again. I'm basically going in with this almost ultramarine or periwinkle color here. Do I want more? Yeah, why not? Okay. More. I had a little bit of the teal on the edge, so I slid the edge over to see about maybe using a little bit of the teal. So now this is one of my favorite stencils. I like to overlay this, and I usually like it lighter over darker areas. It gives me some interesting floral-like shapes and a lot of texture. Again, I'm trying to see if there's anything coming off of the other end, and then I'll decide, now I need more of that texture everywhere. So here I go again. And you'll see me using different parts of the stencil because I don't want to repeat the same pattern necessarily everywhere. So I may use an edge in one place and the center in another place. Okay, I took it off and I dried it. So now I need more stencils. I'm going to go with a little more lettering. I've switched to a slightly warmer color, I think. That may have been more of a purpley color. And now I'm just looking at it and saying, what's next? Okay, so then I got Anzo Yellow, and I decided that I wanted to tone a bunch of this space with this Anzo Yellow. So it's very thin, it's transparent. I use the golden fluid acrylics, and I like what happened there. And I'll keep on turning this picture around and around, trying to decide what I want. And so then I decided I wanted some purple. So I put some, the same as I did the yellow, I did some purple. And now I'm turning it around, and I've decided that this is the way. No, maybe that, no, maybe that, no. I like that little passage of purple heading in. So I want it to lighten things up, and I tried that white and did not like it. So I went to a really, really deep, this is a translucent scarlet, I think, in the Nova paints. So I thought I'd put some bold color in. And I decided it needed to be bolder. And now I'm adding it in basically 2 or 3 more places. So I keep on working through these paintings in lots and lots of different layers. And not always sure exactly what I'm doing. There is no plan. I just keep on playing in the moment and see what I like. I decided I want them to look more tulipy or something. And then I decided to come in with some a more opaque. This is a lime yellow green. And I made some circles. And now I'm went in with just the yellow. That's a Hansa yellow light. And I'm just toning a little more of all of the color around this with this Hansa yellow light. Now this is very transparent, so you can see the layer underneath of it. And I've decided that that white needs to be yellow, and ended up putting some red in it. Putting more yellow around. It's turning more green. I think I'm picking up more blue as I'm going along. I tend to mix the colors on the palette, so I just kind of play with them. And I'm trying to get some more feeling of light into this painting. So So I'll just keep on going. Now what you'll notice is you can see the patterns of the stencils underneath a lot of this. So when I work with these colors and they're translucent or transparent, this one happens to be translucent, you're going to see part of the color underneath. It's going to change the color of the yellow. So now I'm trying to think what next. I did not like that dark black, so I put a big red spot there. I was thinking poppy, and then I think I eventually changed my mind. I put a more opaque. I went and switched to the CAD red, which is much more opaque because I wanted it to look much more opaque. The red needed to be a red statement in those places at that point in my painting. So, and then I'm thinking and thinking and thinking, cleaning off my brush, trying to decide what next. So I put more red in here, but it's a lighter red. It's a more orangey red. And I'm putting now some darker pieces of red and dark in there, kind of toning areas. So now it's almost looking pink. So now this is my flame orange. I love flame orange. I absolutely love flame orange. It is an interesting color. It actually ends up going more almost yellow, red. It's a fabulous color. It just livens up paintings and it thins out really, 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 really well. So I'm using this to kind of surround some of my lights with this flame orange color. And I'm using a little bit that's left in my brush to tone some of the yellows, and I decided I wanted to clean that up a little bit. Again, I am still playing. I know that the blueness of that of that flower was annoying me a little bit, but I didn't want to let it go yet. I think in the end I do something with it, but I liked what was happening with it. And so now I'm about to do some fairly bold moves. Thinking of where I'm going next, I'm really not happy with the bottom of that painting at this point. And so I'm going to take, this is the Enzo yellow again, and I'm just pulling out some of pattern of a flower down in there, and I'm toning more of the colors, toning, and then trying to figure out what is next. So I will pick up the paper and bend it and look at it and stare at it, and then I'll make a bold move. And here I decided that I did not like all of the red. So I started out thinking I was going to do this in white, and instead I decided it really needed to be that dark blue. So I keep on going over this almost snaky thing that's happening here. And I'm mixing up a bluer blue, and I will go back and really blue it. I like introducing different shapes. I like those curvy shapes in there, And so now I've got a light green on my brush, and I made a circle, and I have a half circle, and I'll make another half circle, and I'll just kind of play with all of the colors again, trying to figure out exactly what I want in here, because it's really much too defined for me at the moment, and in places not defined enough. So now I'm going to take, this is actually some white acrylic ink that I've made. And I'm going to take the white acrylic ink and make this pattern and start pulling it out. I'm going to start another layer. I have thoroughly dried the layer that I just finished. And so I'm going to play a bit here and kind of see what comes out of all of this. I'm using a wet brush, not real super wet, but more than damp, and I want this white to kind of start pulling out and shadowing, kind of glazing an area. You'll see that the colors are going to show through. It's going to end up to be kind of a light lavender. I didn't want quite as much down there, so I cleaned it off. And then I'll try a little more water, see if I can get it pulled out the way I want it to pull out. So the inks will move, and I'll just kind of keep on playing around. I'm going to try a skewer to see if I can get them to come into some fine points. And then I decided later that I really didn't like that, so I removed them. But still, I like to put some pattern in some of the acrylics here. And this was where I decided I didn't like it coming in that much, so I used a wet Q-tip and I just cleaned it back and cleaned it up just a little bit. I just didn't like what happened. So now I am looking at another color. Now I'm back to my flame orange over here. So I'm running out. I've got flame oranges being hard to get. I'm going to have to order some more, but I'm running out. But here I am using that flame orange in the same way. So you'll see the flame orange particularly is very transparent. So you do see most of the pattern underneath of it. But I love what happens with that pop of color that happens. And I'm using it very thinly now, and what you'll see, it just gently tones some of the other colors around there. So playing with it, toning just a little bit. This is very, 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 very thin. And I just toned up in that one corner. It is a very intuitive process. I sometimes can't remember everything that I did, but now I've got to work down in this lower corner. Again, I'm gonna use some of the white and make another flowery shape. I seem to be morphing a bit of the 60s in here. So I'm using a wet brush, and I'm softening these edges and pulling them out and kind of making a hazy area around it and defining more of the blue turquoisey area in it. I decided I wanted another layer, so I just put a whole bunch more on and played with it some more. Pulling it out, brushing it around. This is just another layer. I mean, if I decide that I don't like this layer, I can do another layer. There's certain things I really ended up keeping from this layer, and there's other things that I ended up getting rid of. I'm still not happy with the other corner, but I'll figure it out as I get through. I'm actually much happier with my dots that I put the blue snake or whatever it is going through it. So thinking, not happy with that area. What can I do? And so what I want to do is get some more lightness in the area. So I am mixing up a color, and I will use it as another stencil again. This time I am just using an opaque red. I thought, well, maybe I should add some more red. The poppy look was just too much for me. So I've added some more red here. And I'm doing it with texture, so I've got some opaque red on some not opaque red, and I'm becoming much happier with what's happening as I keep on working back and forth. Now I lightened it. Let's see about making some highlights here. Liking that better. So what's next? Back and forth, back and forth. Okay, I tried to do a white there, and the white was much too wet. So now I'm just grabbing a little piece of foam or bubble wrap, and I'm spreading some of that white to other places. Now I'm pulling some of the white off, and I'm putting it back on into other places. Just introducing a line of light through everything there. Keep on staring at it, trying to figure out what it is. What's next? Okay, I need my blue line needs to be redefined. I decided it needs some blue coming down in some way. So now I'm trying to figure out how I would get some blue down. And I haven't come up with it yet. Up there I go. So now I'll take a little bit of this blue and I'll add it down into where the darks are here on the bottom. In the attempt to see if I can get some of those darks coming all the way through this piece. This is not actually a very successful effort, but it's just one more layer of what I will end up in the painting. So everything is not a success, but everything is built on the last thing I've done. So I tried to change the color. I went more gold. I didn't like it. I'll end up changing that color again after I pull it off. Scrubby, scrubby, scrubby. Let's try putting a stencil down there. And I'm not going to like this either. I do it, but it's not one of my favorite things that I've done here. It just looks kind of messy there. It takes me a while to figure out what I'm going to do in this area. I like pretty much everything else except for this one area down there. So now I'm just making it blue. We'll see what happens. I'll just make it a darker blue. And I'll glaze over everything. And I'll put some white in it, and I'll make it a grayer blue, and then I like that even less. So never be afraid to just kind of go for it. See what happens. You know, there's always the possibility that it'll work out really well. Not happening to me in the moment here, but you know, there was always that possibility. So now I'm lightening everything up. Let me see how that goes. And more light. So the dark didn't work. Now I'm lightening my way in. I've got way too much of a triangle in here at this point. But still working my way through everything. I do like how I see so many patterns underneath. So at this point, I'm thinking I got to do something pretty drastic. So let me put some more blue pattern in it. Ooh, well, that's kind of interesting. That helped somehow a little bit. That didn't help. Still, I'm trying to connect. I feel like I have two different paintings. I've got to connect the top to the bottom. So what am I going to do next? Well, I'm going to try to do it with a little bit of stencil colors. They'll end up, you'll see them underneath something later. It's not exactly the perfect solution in the moment, but it is just another layer of what I'm putting down. Very interesting, kind of intricate in places. Yeah, well, that made it more interesting, but it didn't really do what I wanted it to do. Yep. So now I'm going to lighten it again all around everything here. I just keep on working and working and working. Sometimes I think, well, maybe I should have stopped like 3 stages ago, but the painting's already in the next stage. So what next? Okay. Now I'm making my darks bluer. I decided I wanted to make the darks more blue rather than, they were Payne's gray and they were just too dead of a color. So I'm using a little bit of the ultramarine here, and I'm beginning to introduce a little ultramarine into the darks. I'm going to meander my way through here and try to connect down. And I started liking that, and then I'm not that sure. So then I overdid it here. I decided later this was definitely an overdoing, but it was just what I did in the moment. So now what? I have a lot of pattern happening here. Okay, so I dried it again, and I still don't like that area in there. I've taken the corner and made it much redder. I used a transparent red on the corner, and now I'm going to try into that area that I just keep on not liking. So now I was thinking pebbles, and I thought this looks a lot like pebbles. So let me see what happens if I use a bright color. Let me see, maybe I'll put a turquoise back in here. I seem to have lost a lot of my turquoise. So I am making a color, and now I'm placing it in. And so what I did is I took a turquoise, and I put a little bit of white in it, and I am liking that better. But not perfect. So what next? At this point, I decided I needed darker, that there's that grayish color or whatever it was, wasn't the correct color in the background. So I'm going to come in with a little bit of the ultramarine, and now I'm going to scumble a little bit of this over everything. And you'll still see a slight bit of the pattern underneath, but I'm looking to just end up with a little bit of this ultramarine. Then I'm going to go back and put my turquoise on top of that. And you'll see it's a little lighter than the other turquoise. And ta-da! So I'm liking that. I actually like that a lot. And I'm putting in, darkening some of where the lights are. I decided I wanted them to be darker. So I have a nice pattern going there, and so I'm darkening it. And I'm getting toward the end of my painting here. I am doing my final big brush details. And then at the very end, I will probably do some finer details. I usually use a white gel pen or an acrylic pen. I think on this one, what I did is I decided that I was going to use the acrylic, the white acrylic ink, and really work with it. So just about finished with everything. Dried it again. And now I'm going to do my, I decided I needed a little more red into different areas. So again, final details. We'll see how they work. A little red, a little red, a little red. I keep on picking it up. There's a glare on it when I'm down a lot, and so I have to pick it up to find the, make sure I don't have that, I can see what I'm painting beyond the glare. I love all the peekaboo qualities of this one. I seem to have gotten a really good job of like intertwining a lot of pieces here. So a little more red, a little more red. Intertwining. Okay, so now I'm doing the absolute final details, and I am a dot addict. Dot, 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 dot. I am going to use lots of little dots, and I will then you could use an acrylic pen for this. I just happen to be using this handmade acrylic ink. I kind of like playing with this bottle instead, mainly because it keeps me really loose. I don't do perfect lines when I'm playing with this little bottle. So here I am doing more dots, and I will just keep on working back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. You can see me trying to figure out what's next, where am I going? Okay, let's do another squiggly line in here, and let's do some more in here, and connecting. I like connections. I'll get all of my whites to connect in some ways. I will get my flower shapes to connect in some ways. I will make leaf shapes here and there. So I just keep on kind of scribbling on things. You know, so here's another shape I am. But I love that little cross I put in the center. Here's another shape. This is really delicate what I'm doing. It's not heavy at all. I'm just playing, I'm letting the ink come out in a fairly random manner. It's not always, it doesn't always come out at the same speed because I'm using it in this little bottle, and so I squeeze the bottle and it comes out faster at times and not as thick at other times. And I like the randomness of it. I like how I kind of just scribble on top and let it just do what it wants to kind of do. I enjoy these final details, the little marks. They make a cohesive painting of the whole thing. So I am just about done here, and I want to thank you all for watching me, and I hope you've enjoyed the process. I hope I've explained it well. 3 more little leaves here. Do I put 1 more leaf in? I don't remember. So I appreciate all of you, and oh, I put 3 more leaves in. I tend to do things in threes with the leaves. There's another 3 leaves in. Hiding under, going over, running around. It's a fabulous, fabulous process. And I hope you all enjoyed it. Oh, a whole nother set of dots. When in doubt, dot. Dotting centers, dotting centers. I love these little lines. Thanks.